We're going to talk about the AEW Wednesday night program here for a few minutes, and then we're going to sign off and hope that next week is a better time for all of us here in wrestling fandom.
Hey, can I say something?
I wish you would.
We've always had our criticisms and our problems with different things in AEW, from the booking to certain talent being pushed, but we've also pointed out all the good things, the things we've liked, the things we think they can improve upon, the talent that has potential. And I feel like I have to give that kind of disclaimer because some people think we're just completely unfair, or some people think we just completely kiss their ass. It's amazing. I wanted to say all that because I feel like AEW right now is going through a weird, it's almost like the summer of '85 in Mid-South. Like, it's a weird period where they got some main event guys there and they got some guys doing some okay stuff, but there's a lot of really lame and dry shit on their shows, or just shit that doesn't seem like it is really helping anything right now. And I don't know, I feel like AEW lost a lot of their momentum and mojo. Even though they're selling tickets to some of these live shows, the TV has not been good for a little while now.
Well, if nothing else, we're starting to see the effects of a couple of years of stress in the wrestling business on Tony Khan, and now with multiple shows and multiple TVs and things going sideways and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, this program was better than last week's because it would be hard not to be. It would be hard for any TV program not to be better than the one that they showed last week. But it's up and it's down. The first match. Honest to God, I would have rather seen this match in NXT, I think, because then Adam Cole would have been there for it. It wouldn't have just been Dax. The Adam Cole that we knew and loved would have been involved in that one too. The opening match was the Owen Hart tournament match, Adam Cole and Dax Harwood. And again, as soon as I saw this, I said, so the way that this bracketing works out, Adam Cole couldn't beat the company mascot when he first made his debut in AEW, but now that he's been around for a few months, he can beat one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the world. See why you need to plan ahead. See why when you get a star, you don't immediately put him in a joke match and have him do a job just because the other guy's a babyface, because you might need this guy sometime. There's no pre-planning and thought into any of this shit. They just lurch forward with what's in front of them that they think of on the spot. Anyway, I believe that Tony Khan should give Dax and Cash extra contracts to train the rest of the guys on their roster. I mean, Dax is incredible. We don't even need to say that. Everybody's recognizing it now. And they did some good, serious wrestling. But then Adam Cole takes over, gets some heat on Dax, and they go to the floor, and they're down on the floor forever before they go to the break, because that's the kind of thing that would have been tightened up in NXT. Adam would have still been in shape, in some kind of physical condition. He would still been being presented as a top guy, and the referees would have been competent, and they would have all known the rules. This would have been a better match in NXT. But Dax did what he could. That we talked about earlier in the program, Jim Ross calling the chest first a la Bret Hart turnbuckle as if it was an offensive move that Bret was known for. They announced AEW is coming to Savannah, Georgia. Good fucking luck. Good fucking luck. Let's see how that one goes. You know about Savannah, don't you?
No, I don't know why you're saying that, no.
When was the last time you heard about a major wrestling crowd in Savannah, Georgia?
Jeez, I can't.
Exactly.
For the NWA?
For anybody. For anybody. For anybody. That's why the Georgia office gave Savannah to Crockett at one point in the, late 70s? Because they just, fuck it, we ain't going to go lose any money there anymore. In the 80s, when everything was selling out, you go to Savannah, fuck you, we don't want to come. I'll buy somebody a drink if they draw a big house in Savannah, Georgia. Anyway, they went back and forth. They had a good match. Dax got a couple of 2 counts with the pile driver. I thought, oh my God, okay, now pile driver's an immediate 2 count, but nevertheless, Dax got at the sharpshooter, but he was selling his ribs from being thrown into the post. He couldn't hold it. And then Cole knocked him off the apron to the floor where he took a bump on his bad ribs. And then Cole gets the sharpshooter and Dax tapped out. So yes, there was something that he could sell in terms of his ribs were injured. But you've got 2 guys that are comparable in terms of the way they're being presented. FTR, the top tag team, or they're just not the champions, but they're the top tag team. Cole's one of the top singles guys. The heel should, if he's going to beat the babyface should have an out. So the ribs kind of work, but I'm gobsmacked that the heel, without cheating, that anybody thinks it's a good idea for the heel to make the babyface quit without cheating in really any shape or form to lead to it. I still can't get used to that and don't see why it's necessary. Your thoughts?
Good match. Dax is one of the best wrestlers in ring that we've seen in a very long time. He gets better and better. Luckily, he's been getting a lot of exposure on their TV. I'd like to see more FTR matches. FTR was getting a lot of buzz. The fans are really getting behind him. And since that time, we saw Dax versus Punk, and then we see Dax versus Cole, and no more FTR matches.
Who won those matches? Not Dax.
Not Dax.
So every time they start to do something and people are talking about them, and all of a sudden singles matches or jobs or hide you from television.
Yeah, we got Dax versus Punk, Dax versus Cash, and then Dax versus Cole. The other thing is,
at least Dax beat Cash.
You've spent so much time the last several years talking about cosplay wrestling and cosplay wrestlers. Not just guys who want to play dress up and be a character, but people who are performing as professional wrestlers. And I always think about what would embarrass me if someone was here when I was watching wrestling. And it's happened sometimes where I have to watch it and someone's here and I'm like, oh, how do I explain this? Adam Cole is one of the biggest cosplay wrestling culprits out there. The finish was ridiculous because I don't believe Adam Cole could submit anyone.
Yeah.
He's got no physique. He's got no tan. He's shorter than everyone. He's scrawnier than everyone. He's a scrawny wrestler. And he's got no tan. He's out there and he looks like crap. He's a cosplay wrestler. He could slap his thigh like everyone else does. He could kick out of all the moves like everyone else does. He could flip his hair around. And he's got an entrance that he likes to do his little pose for. And people will yell a catchphrase. But other than that, I'm sorry. He's smaller than every wrestler on the road. He's smaller than Britt Baker. He's smaller than Orange Cassidy. He's smaller than Danhausen. He has no physique, and we're supposed to accept him as a main event caliber wrestler because they tell us that. He's done nothing to establish himself as that in AEW. Whatever he had coming off NXT is gone.
Yeah.
I have a problem with this match because I think the finish itself, not just Adam Cole going over, but him submitting Dax to the sharpshooter was ridiculous. The booking of FTR for the last month has been asinine. But when you talk cosplay wrestling, it's not just the guys like Orange Cassidy that's a stupid gimmick that embarrasses us. Adam Cole. Imagine you sitting in a room with someone who didn't watch wrestling and they're watching Adam Cole versus Dax. He's half the size of fucking Dax. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And that's why I agreed with you earlier when you said this match would have been different in NXT. Whether it was just the way they filmed him or the fact that he was taking his physique seriously. And again, I always say this, the caveat, I hope he's not sick or anything. Because that's the only other thing I could think of why he would just give up on trying to look like a wrestler.
And again, you know, that's, if it was in NXT, we would have had a referee with authority and we would have but Dax did the best he could here. Let's just put it that way.
I agree.
And then here comes Hangman Adam Page to the desk for color because the next match features like Mussolini in a hockey jersey. Because here comes Punk. And as soon as he comes out, he kneels down and he calls to cut the music so he can yell, it's clobbering time. But also, he knew that he was going to get booed out of the building. And I obviously didn't ask him. I wasn't on the premises at the time. But I have to think that he had him cut the music so he could walk down there even with the Islanders jersey. He's doing everything he can. He just saved a baby from a burning building.
He was wearing the jersey of a player who left the Islanders, one of the best players in hockey, left the Islanders. Some would say for greed. Others would say to return home to Canada, to Toronto.
Oh!
So it wasn't like an Islander great who's currently playing or one of their players who have their names in the rafters. It was someone who left voluntarily.
But he knew he was getting booed.
Oh,
and in that case, that's why he's wearing the shirt, because he wanted to lean into it. He cut the music so that you could hear it. It's because MJF is from Long Island, and they have created this now, and it works. It's the Bret Hart Bizarro World Canada business, except it's Long Island instead of Canada. So Punk is the babyface everywhere but Long Island, like Michaels was the babyface in America, but MJF, as Bret was in Canada, is the babyface in Long Island because he's from there, and he still manages to play up. We'll get to this here in a little while. But MJF still manages to play up him being from Long Island and him being a heel at the same time. And plus, you can vouch for this. People from the New York metropolitan area are used to being known as real just fucking uncircumcised dicks to the rest of the country, right?
No, a lot of us are circumcised. A lot of us are circumcised.
Well, but you're all dicks of some respect.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, and they're going to lean into the whole Punk being booed in Long Island thing, but it doesn't fit when the company, it fits when Punk leans into it and he's just being himself, but when the company assists him, they book him against another babyface, Little Brutus of the Dork Order, who's from Long Island. Okay, now we're getting a little, I know, and Page used to be with the Dork Order, but we should be able to forget about that by now, one would think. They haven't been darkening each other's doorsteps lately, Page and the Dork Order. But so they're having the match with Punk against Little Brutus, Short John Silver, as I like to call him. And Page is doing color. Did Adam Page say anything, make any comment to either sell a ticket to the pay-per-view main event or entertain anyone in any way? Or did he just fucking mumble a bit and sit there to serve his time at the desk?
He's the dullest world champion we've ever seen.
And I was like, okay, is he going to be a asshole heel this week like he was last week, talking about Punk jerking off to Bret and I'm going to embarrass you and I'm going to fuck you up? Or is he going to be a baby face, or is he going to be whatever? I couldn't tell what attitude he's taking because he said nothing, and he said what he did say in such a disinteresting fashion. But the crowd was booing everything that Punk did, and he was loving it. So a Punk would give the little fucking fella openings to do shit, and he sold more than he should have because the crowd was liking it. I mean, the match, it was what it was. I'm not sure about, he's the biggest babyface, the most popular guy in AEW. And it's not that he's being booed out of the building because, again, it's understandable given the situation, but because he's competitive with a mid-card hometown babyface. That's why. But Page was a non-entity on color. The match went a bit long. Short John got a little sloppy, and then Punk hit a buckshot lariat. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And then here we go. Here comes Page to the ring. And I'm thinking, okay, now we're going to see something. We're going to have a blistering back and forth, some witty repartee, possibly a physical angle.
He's specifically mad about the buckshot lariat.
Yes. I'm thinking we're going to see something, right? And they get in the ring and they go face to face. And Punk says, hey, it's not personal. It's just business. He's trying to be the kind of asshole. And he did a good promo, which was neither babyface nor heel, but was plain spoken. And then Page just doesn't say anything. He just fucking gives Punk the finger and leaves. So my question is, unless somebody has suddenly come to their senses and decided, okay, Adam Page, bleh, CM Punk, big star, let's put the belt on Punk. Unless they've decided that, how bad a mistake will it be to have CM Punk versus Adam Page and have Punk fail to win the title? Not even do a job, just somehow fail to win the title, much less do a job. They've damaged Danielson. He was the best in the business. They damaged him. Cole never got a chance with the booking, and now it's obvious, as we said, he's just thrown his hands up. He doesn't care. All the new signings have already been marginalized, and people have either seen their flaws and weaknesses, or they're not as over as they were when they started because the people were happy to see them there, but now they've seen them booked by AEW. So who else is going to be the next world champion in this fucking joint? I think Punk has to win this. I don't think he will, but I think he needs to.
There's only two options. Punk wins or Punk's screwed over by someone. And I'm not saying that's the right thing or the wrong thing. I'm saying those are the only two options.
Who would that be? Someone be?
I don't know. Who does Punk want to work with? That's who it'll be.
Well, and more importantly, Adam Page better embrace that person and fucking try to sap some of that heat while he gets the chance, because he ain't going to get any on his own. I thought that they intended to present Tony Nese as a star. He's got a manager. They've been having shots of him in the crowd, calling him the hottest free agent in the business, even though he was neither hot nor free nor an agent. They book him with Danhausen. And it's a 30-second match. He attacks him and hits him with a running knee and pins him, but still, not only have they yet to explain what the fuck Danhausen is or why he's there, why, but now they're booking him as a wrestler and they beat him in 15 seconds, and it didn't do anybody any good because, of course, yes, you should beat this Halloween clown if you're a real wrestler, but why, if this is a real wrestling show, why are they booking a Halloween clown to wrestle? So this did no good for anybody. And then Mark Sterling gets on a microphone and he's mad that Nese didn't get an entrance and Danhausen did, which, by the way, is true. So then Tony Nese beats him up some more, but then Hook's music plays, and here he comes, and the heels bail, no contact. They just powder. And Hook stands there and looks at Danhausen and shakes his hand. So now, if Nese is any good, which he was last time I saw him 10 years ago when he came to Ring of Honor tryout camp, and we know Hook's good, they've got two potential upper card guys in ridiculous, hokey bullshit. So this was a waste of time.
With the exception of the MJF Wardlow stuff, show-wide the booking has been horrible for a little while now, and Hook is a great example of it. You had someone that fans were really interested in. They were intrigued by. They wanted to see more of. And now he's got the ironic wrestling fan base, because that's what they're doing with him now. His stuff with Danhausen makes no sense, and it's silly to get the ironic wrestling fan. This was someone who was serious, should have been treated serious, seriously feuding with people. Could have done more with that than this. This is a mistake. But again, the booking show-wide the last several weeks has been really bad. Other than Wardlow, MJF, tell me what segments have been consistently good. Even the Punk stuff, now it's in this weird point with Page that doesn't make any sense.
You know what?
And FTR been removed from TV too, as a team.
I figured it out. You've heard on the news there's a shortage of baby formula, right?
Yeah.
The little kids not being. I thought babies just drank milk. I didn't know there was some special mixture.
No, you
right?
You can't just give them any milk. No.
Get a fucking cow or get it straight from the biddy, which I thought that was all you needed to do. But apparently there must be a shortage of ADD medication also. That would explain if Tony's been off of his meds the last few weeks. He can't focus. He can't concentrate. That's why it doesn't make any sense. All right, the only good segment of the program is coming up next, folks. The contract signing between Wardlow and MJF, they had 20 security guys. They had the whole thing set up. I saw a lot of people like the Dark Side of the Ring parody video. I liked it except for the Jericho narration because...
Yes, thank you.
Yes, he's really the narrator of the show, but they just had a program. They hated each other. And then he has to put comedy in. Wait a minute, is this for MJF? How much you paying me? Okay. And then no, that's not right. So they had to hoke that up a little bit. They get too cute. But nevertheless, it was a decent video, but we got out of the video and then we got to the good stuff. MJF's entrance. The people love him in Long Island. And he was hot dogging and chewing the scenery. And it was like Orson Welles had suddenly showed up at a fucking 10th grade school play. And he's just in charge of everything. And what a fucking performance. He knew he was over. He knew he had the fucking people in the palm of his hand. They were eating out of his goddamn whatever you eat out of. I could go on. And he took it and ran with it. This was one of the most brilliant, just verbal performances and just stealing the show. And even though it was petty theft and taking over that I've seen in a long time. And he gave the conditions for Wardlow to face the Minch of the Cinch. And he preconditioned the fans to boo Wardlow out of the arena, which they did. Wardlow didn't even have to speak. MJF was running the whole thing. And this is the way to do it. Again, because the TV viewers all over the world and the country see this as an aberration. It's like they're in the fucking heel's hometown. What a goddamn bunch of assholes. Whatever. And MJF mentioned Cody by name and 2024. Now, we've heard some situations going on. Should we bring that up now, or should we?
Yeah, why don't we finish talking about this?
We'll finish where I'm at. We'll finish where I'm at in this so we don't get lost. Basically, the conditions are for the match with MJF and Wardlow. He gets to whip Wardlow 10 times. They're redoing. Who did he do this with? This was the Labors Cody. Of Jericho, right?
Well,
he whipped Cody.
He whipped Cody with the belt. Cody.
And then Jericho had to beat a bunch of people to get to him or whatever. But nevertheless, he's going to whip Wardlow 10 times. Then Wardlow's got to wrestle Spears in a cage with MJF as referee and beat him. If Wardlow loses, he can never sign a contract with AEW. I mean, all these things are preposterous, but again, the performance by MJF and milking the people for all that they were worth, this was great. And so finally, Wardlow goes to sign the deal. He's going to accept all of this, but he can't sign with the handcuffs on, and MJF says, uncuff him, uncuff. And the people, as soon as he says uncuff him, the fans go, ooh, no, you're making a mistake. And so Wardlow signs the contract and then demolished the 10 security guys and Spears. And the security is bumping for him like fucking crazy. And the people are going nuts. And he catches MJF and goes for a power bomb. And Mark Sterling saves at the nick of time by jumping on Wardlow's back. And MJF scurries off, and Wardlow puts Sterling through a table. And if you're going to put somebody through a table, there's the time to put him through the table. What a fucking segment. I know some people want to see Page and Punk just because you want to see Punk. But this is the match on the pay-per-view that is going to sell pay-per-view. People want to see the big fucker get a hold of MJF. That's the point of the whole thing. So if I don't know who would be being given credit for selling these tickets, except if it wasn't for MJF and CM Punk, you'd attribute it to mass hysteria on the part of people buying tickets to these shows. And that's still part of it. But that segment, that's what you want to do with wrestling. You want to make people want to see the babyface get a hold of the heel. They have done it.
And CM Punk's a big attraction, but this match itself is an attraction. People can't wait to finally see Wardlow and MJF. They've built up the match and the anticipation perfectly. Although some interesting roads have taken at different times.
Rhodes! Funny you mentioned that name, because MJF, as we all know, was bosom buddies with Cody Rhodes, and now Cody is in a new environment. MJF is still mentioning him, and it's been out there that MJF not happy with his current contract situation, and he's been bandying about the idea of when his deal is up in 2024. And we've talked about this, it's been several weeks ago now. Is he still working on the same contract that he signed when he was, the guy on MLW television? Because if I've seen Vince McMahon tear up people's deals when unexpected shit happened, and I would hesitate to think that Tony Khan hadn't been smart enough to do that and keep. Let's face it. Who were the four pillars supposed to be that they called them?
MJF, Sammy, was it Darby and Jungle Boy?
Okay, Sammy Guevara, if he's still walking in 2 years, the bloom's already coming off that rose. Jungle Boy, give me a fucking break. And, Darby is not going to be walking in 2 years. MJF is, and they've cooled Darby off already. So MJF in 2 years is going to be AEW's homegrown superstar. And it might be a whole lot more expensive for Tony to fucking keep him from walking then than it might be for him to make him happy now.
I think it's going to be expensive either way. Again, you can't just rip up a contract unless the other party says, I'm okay with you ripping it up and giving me something new.
Yeah, I'd say about $4 million.
Unless he thinks he can get more millions from Vince in a few years, and that's where Tony could step it up and say, look, this is ridiculous. You are one of our biggest stars. You're one of the few people that we could say moves numbers. People care about your segments. I like them. They're really good. We want to give you a new deal. We know you can get a lot of money somewhere else. We want to give you more money than they ever would. Tony could do that if he really wanted to. And this may be the guy to do it to. And you brought up a point earlier, and I've been thinking about it since the last time we talked about it, because this isn't the first time this story's gotten out there. And I do hope we don't have to go through 2 years of MJF's thinking about leaving, MJF's happy, MJF's thinking about leaving. Because it's 2 years, ladies and gentlemen. It's a long time. But if MJF is still signed or still has the original contract he went to AEW under, where he was a young guy coming off MLW, who's notorious for their contracts not necessarily being favorable to wrestlers, gets his first major deal with AEW, if he's still signed to that contract, and in the past few years, main evented, had critically acclaimed matches and programs. The ratings move up for him. He's the best promo. He has more crossover capabilities than most wrestlers, even though he hasn't really been utilized in that way. If he's still making less than a Scorpio Sky, a Frankie Kazarian, think of some of the people they've been featuring lately in the TNT title program. Now
here's the thing also, because you've seen this circulated on the internet. People have said, and I don't know if this is legitimate, but it sounds, I don't know about the amounts, but the names, except for one, sound legitimate, that supposedly the highest paid people in AEW are your Moxley, your Punk, your Danielson, your whatever. You see figures like 2 million or 3 million bandied around, but this may have been before the last acquisition or two, but it was circulated that one of the 5 highest paid guys in AEW was Pac at like 7 figures. That somehow anybody was insane enough to think that Pac was worth 7 figures a year, and he's never even on the program. And in COVID, yes, he was over in England, whatever the fuck. But I mean, it's Pac. He has some good points, but he can't have a goddamn match on his own to save his life because he's always doing something goofy. But the point is, when I was in MLW doing the commentary in 2019, when this was coming about, and at that time it had been announced, I couldn't explain to anybody that I'd had prior knowledge of it because of that pesky NDA. But all the guys were talking that were being signed at that point, the independent guys, the outlaw guys, the pockets of the world, they were talking about that this guy was signing independent guys from these companies for 5 times or more the money that they'd ever been paid by anybody in their life. And that would have been true for all of those guys then, and it still would be a minute fraction of what they're paying guys like Jericho and Moxley and Danielson and Punk and etc. But there is also some of those cases where there are guys that just because they had the right friends to put in the word for them or been some kind of name in the fantasy land that Tony lives in, the independent wrestling circuit, they're getting close to 7 figures to do absolutely jack all of shit, but wrestling YouTube matches because they're not worth a shit. And he was, blinded by the shiny new toys.
Hey, let me ask you about these guys that have come in the last year of WWE TV. If MJF is still under that first deal he signed in AEW, does that mean Malachi Black got paid more money than him to come in? Because he hasn't been worth it.
Well, certainly.
Andrade El Idolo?
Yes.
Mark Henry?
Yes.
Christian Cage?
Yes.
MJF is worth more money than all of those people combined.
Yes.
So this is why Tony Khan should rip up his contract and give him something new. But it can't be for just like a...
Wait a minute. Now that you've talked me into this, fuck it. If I was MJF, I'd say, fuck you, Tony. I'll see you in 2 years. Don't bother tearing up anything now.
That's what I'm saying.
Like it is.
That's what I'm saying. He knows there's a pot of gold waiting for him over there. Tony Khan could give him a whole bunch of shit. And he could even give him enough so they wouldn't worry about 2 years from now. We could end it right now. But it would be a lot, and he's probably not going to do that. But that's the issue. If MJF... When did he sign? 2019. If MJF was working 5 years under that original deal and making that original money, and all of these other guys are either already there or coming in and making more money, if I was him, I would be livid. If I was him, I would probably have a representative talk to Tony Khan and say, this isn't going to fly. He's not making shit compared to these people. If that's the situation.
Nash and Hall got the favored nations clause out of Bischoff because he was in the same position 30 years ago or whatever Tony Khan is now. He was in over his head, whistling Stranger in Paradise and using somebody, well, in this case, Tony's using his dad's money. Bischoff was using a non-relative's money to sign all these fucking big name stars that Vince had already made. So when Nash and Hall signed, if you pay anybody more than us, we get a raise too.
MJF's more valuable to the company than Moxley. I mean, really think about it.
You don't even have to hate Moxley's entire presence and presentation as bad as I do to see that and agree with it, because it's obvious.
So I think there's the problem, because part of the story that got out, and I don't know how these stories keep leaking, someone's leaking them for some reason, that Tony and MJF are still not talking. So they're, or not, maybe not talking isn't the right term, they're not where their relationship was before the previous blow-up where he talked about this on another podcast, MJF. Like I said before, MJF deserves as much money as anyone in that company other than CM Punk.
You know what would have solved all of this? Fuck guaranteed contracts. I actually said that. I knew for the first time I got one. I said, well, this ain't good. Because it used to be the people who drew the money and the people that sold the tickets made the money. Then the guaranteed contracts came in, and now you're guaranteed to make X dollars, whether you drop dead, turn blue, show up, or don't. So where's the goddamn incentive? And right now, the highest paid guys in the company, if it were by the territory model where you paid the people in the main events, you paid the people that drew the money, the highest paid guys in the company would be CM Punk and MJF, along with another one or two of them, because they're in everything good and everything hot and everything that's selling.
But again, I can understand where MJF would potentially be coming from, and I can understand where Tony Khan would be coming from. I have you to this contract. I have all these other headaches. Please don't be another one. I can understand what Tony Khan would come from. But we can't go through this for 2 fucking years.
But again, in the wrestling business of days gone by, this would have been an easy fix. Because the booker / promoter would have gone to the top star that was pissed off and threatening to fucking jump ship. Say, all right, what's going to make you happy? Okay, nobody knows about this. Here's what we're going to do. You don't know, I don't know. Your check will change. Nothing's happened. Act naturally, say nothing. Nobody would ever hear about it. They wouldn't know what MJF was getting paid because he wouldn't say, and the promoter wouldn't say. But now nobody can shut the fuck up. And if anybody asked the promoter, hey, did you give MJF a raise? He would look straight in their face, just like Paul Heyman would, and say, of course not. And lie like a rug. And who's going to be able to prove different? Nobody. That's why in the old days, people didn't know what they're... Every once in a while, somebody would hear what their opponent got on a big territory show as a payoff, and if it wasn't the same thing they got, then somebody would get mad and quit or punch somebody in the face. That's why you kept the boys in the dark. Even the other boys kept the other boys in the dark. Every once in a while, somebody liked to brag. JYD had the $12,000 week in Mid-South the week of the Superdome show against Michael Hayes. We heard about that for fucking years afterwards. And especially when we main evented the Superdome and it was a tag team with a manager instead of a single match, and we didn't have a $12,000 a week, then we were pissed.
Do you agree, though, with what I said earlier? Not to use a word that is hated in the world of Cornette, but it's going to become tiresome pretty quickly if they keep doing this for the next 2 years.
Yeah, no, it can't go 2 years, or then people are going to go, you know what? We don't really care anymore. We're tired of it. And then if MJF doesn't have the sentiment of the people on his side, it would be harder. Because right now he's the put upon fucking star that's, creating great television and apparently not getting compensated for it, while all these other jack-offs that had EVPs that were friends is, oh, he's great. Well, they're getting $750,000 to fucking diddle around on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you're not going to rip up the contract and give him something new, let him do what Mike Ovitz did with Letterman. You're not going to go out there and solicit offers, but let other people pitch them. Let's see what the WWE has to say, even though we're a couple of years away. If Tony has nothing to worry about, has the money to spend and is willing to spend it, let's get this over with now so we don't have 2 years of this.
No sense dragging our feet. Anyway, we're dragging our feet on the rest of the program. There's still a couple of things left. Would you like me to illustrate them for you?
Yeah, notice they kept the House of Black off this show.
Thank goodness. Actually, maybe it was just during the commercial breaks when they were in black. See what I did there? For the FTW title, by the way, Tony Khan did an interview saying about the 6-man tag team belts, the trios title, as he calls it. He said, I've got a bunch of belts made for a bunch of titles that I've got in mind that I haven't even revealed yet, but you wouldn't believe he's got a bunch of belts already made up. And he's had the 6-man belts already made, and he's going to institute more titles. So now they've got a TV title for each network, a women's title, a men's title, a tag team title, Ring of Honor title, Ring of Honor women's title, Ring of Honor tag team titles,
TV title,
the world title, the regular TV title, not the TV title that's connected to each network.
No, I meant the Ring of Honor TV title.
Oh, the Ring of Honor TV title. Well, but fuck, there's at least 3 or 4 guys on the roster that don't have a championship belt. We need to fix that.
If they're going to insist on 6-man tag matches being trios matches and they even got a belt, should 8-man tag matches officially be quartet matches?
I think so. And then a 10-man tag team, which they've done, could be quintets, and they could have the Dion sisters come down and hang them from a pole, and the way you win the quintet match is to climb up and get all of the quintets off the pole.
Seriously, if that's trios, why wouldn't the other one be the quartets?
Yeah. The quartet championship, and in this corner, actually, they came from the barbershop. For the FTW title, Jungle Boy wrestled Ricky Starks. Remember, Jungle Boy said, I want a match for your non-existent title in order to give you and Hobbs the tag team title match. So Hobbs was in the corner, and this was what it was. As we've said, and I'm not going to belabor it, Jungle Boy is where he's going to be from now on. He's good when he's got somebody to lead him. When he doesn't, when he's in the ring with the trampoline cowboys, he does the same shit they do. His promos haven't developed in 3 years because he barely does them. he apparently doesn't want to do them because he doesn't like talking to people. That's what he said in public. There's no personality here. He looks great with the long hair and the little underneath baby face body that the girls should want to make over him, but he doesn't do anything to make the girls think that he'd be any fucking more fun than he would be around the rest of us. So they had a match. Swerve came down to complain about something, and Stark surprised Jungle Boy and hit his finish 1, 2, 3. So Swerve is the babyface, but he came down complaining about something, but it distracted the other babyface, and the heel capitalized on it, in case you didn't understand what I just said there. And then here comes Christian Cage and Dino down because they're pissed that the other babyface distracted him even though he wasn't trying to. But then here comes Keith Lee, who's another babyface. He's coming down. What is fucking happening? So Swerve and Keith Lee are mad at Starks and Hobbs and Cage and Dino, apparently. And so it smells like, and believe me, smell is the proper adjective here. It smells like we're going to have a triple threat match of some kind, but Jungle Boy was over there with his head down, ignoring everyone, sort of like he does all the time. And Cage went over and hugged him because obviously Jungle Boy was down that he lost. And so you've got 5 baby faces and 2 heels here, and they're all mad at each other. Did I describe this properly?
Yeah, remember what I said before? The booking has been atrocious. This was horribly done. Whatever they're teasing with Jungle Boy, the Christian turn, or him turning on Christian, he seems more like a heel than Christian does lately. Just do it already and get it over with.
Most wrestling fans would say that Christian ought to turn on all these fuckers. They feel bad for Christian having to sit there and be a grown adult in this room of children. So then we had the next segment with a podium. You know, if a podium's involved, it's got to be the Japs, right? The Jericho Appreciation Society.
If it's anything stupid that would have fit in on Monday Night Raw 15 years ago, Chris Jericho is the one who suggested it.
Well, and here it is, including part of the wardrobe, apparently. It was the Jericho appreciators taking the time to give their victory speech. And there was, did you see Jake Hager? He, for a giant behemoth mixed martial arts shoot fighter, he is the most non-threatening, almost effeminate looking fucking human being I've ever seen.
Who do you think's getting paid more, Jake Hager or MJF?
No, I'm sure Jake Hager, because he once wrestled for the WWF, just not well. Hager has no facial expressions whatsoever. He stands there. He has no body language. He stands there with that moop look on his face. You know what a moop look is? That's where if you say to somebody, hey, and they go, moop, like, moop. Moop look, he's wearing a white t-shirt, white tennis shorts, and white tennis shoes with no fucking socks. He looked like a fucking ice cream man in Hawaii. Then the 2.0 and Garcia, I can't listen to this. All I know is that at some point, Moxley and Danielson and Regal and Yuta and Kingston and Santana and Ortiz came out, and they had a sloppy fight for about 20 seconds, and William Regal nailed Jericho, and the heels all ran off, and nothing else happened.
And naturally, William Regal nailed Jericho, so next week they'll have a debate, because that's the way most wrestling programs traditionally go. This is so bad. This is so stupid. And now, at least they got the whole Moxley thing tied up in this. It'll be just one program with all of these people, but they've wasted Bryan Danielson. Jericho's work is atrocious. Whatever anyone thought of Daniel Garcia or 2.0, they're now unwatchable. Daniel Garcia is horrible on the mic. And now we're going to get...
And by the way, did you see... Like, we're mind readers. And it's especially an accomplishment because this mind is so small. But I have hated the entire Blackpool Combat Club since the start. I hate they put Danhausen in the middle of Moxley and Yuta. I hate that Regal is being utilized in this fashion instead of being potentially the commissioner of the whole company and making matches instead of Tony's coked out fucking hippity hopping up and down. But Regal just did an interview on some podcast and said, yeah, the Blackpool Combat Club, it was Moxley's idea. So we have him to, as if it wasn't bad enough that we have to watch him have these garbage matches and we have to suffer that fucking entrance. And we know that he's the one behind getting the bank-addicted drug robber public attention lately because he's an idiot and he idolizes fucking trash like that. But now Moxley is the one responsible for taking away our heel Bryan Danielson. I will never forgive him for that. So
he's another guy with bad ideas.
You should know just automatically if it's a bad outlaw independent wrestling idea, it comes from a guy like Moxley. We should have known.
You know, for every Bob Dylan, there was some really awful singer-songwriter that sucked. And there are certain wrestlers that are creative. CM Punk seems to be the type who can come up with good things to be involved in. Or at least know when to say no to bad things. But there's way too many people in AEW, Moxley, Jericho, Malachi Black, I can go on, who have really bad ideas and really need someone to say, no, you're not doing that. Here's how you should be used.
Well, speaking of bad ideas, and Tony Storm wrestled Jamie Hayter. And I noted that Tony Storm looks great, but it's getting late. So we go to our main event. Speaking of bad ideas. Brian, we haven't said it in a while, but you know what I say when you gimmick a gimmick, you're putting a hat on a hat. You've gimmicked a gimmick. You've put a stipulation on a stipulation. You've gone too far. I am now going to start calling Tony Khan the Mad Hatter. Because I just have a picture, when I see stuff like this main event, I have a picture of Tony Khan running around with 50 hats shoved on his head, one on top of another. Oh, my hats look so good. I must have more. The main event of this show was another Owen Hart tournament match. But unlike all the other tournament matches, this one was an anything goes match. No disqualification. Lazy booking.
In the Owen Hart tournament.
In the Owen Hart tournament. A guy noted for his scientific wrestling. And anything goes match. You know, Owen was noted for having those garbage matches. But the only match in the tournament that's anything goes, it's no DQ. It's also the first match that these two guys have ever had against each other. And it's also two baby faces. So two baby faces that have no grudge against each other. No reason to want to hurt each other. That have never wrestled before. Having their very first match on free television in a tournament. You know why it's anything goes? Because a mark booked it. Jeff Hardy versus Darby Allen. Because that's what, and I don't even use I'm not using the term mark interchangeably with fan here. Because a fan would know how stupid this was to have this match in this way. A mark would not. A mark would say, oh, Jeff jumps off a lot of stuff and Darby jumps off a lot of stuff and they both paint their face. So this is a dream match. But let's have no DQ so they can do all their tricks. That's the way marks book. That is why that marks don't make good bookers. So it sounds good on paper to an amateur matchmaker, but there's no logic, there's no reason, there's no payoff. They didn't make a cent extra for having this match and risking the health of two of their more high-profile contract players. By the way, the Hardy Boys reunion is dead and buried at this point. Did that take 6 weeks?
It took 2 weeks. I mean, or you could say it took Jeff dancing when he came down to save Matt that first night, but at least 2 weeks.
So now we've seen the Hardys reunited. We've seen the Hardy Boys on free television in 2 different matches. Neither one have been any good. Now we've seen Jeff in a singles match, and was embarrassing. So they've pretty much leveled the Hardy Boys in that time. But again, no reason for these guys to have an anything goes match besides the fact that their style against other people is that they take risks, but they have no reason to do this here because they're both baby faces. And their various partners are in the corner. Matt's in Jeff's corner. Sting is in Darby's corner, and they play no part in this whatsoever because it's a babyface match. But at the bell, Darby Allen jump-started it with a drop kick and a dive to the floor. And then, and I swear I am not lying. If I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet ain't left the ground. Within 15 seconds after the bell rang, Darby had pulled 8 chairs out from under the ring and built a chair-like structure on the floor with 8 chairs while Jeff just laid there for no reason. Well, the reason was because he couldn't get up yet because Darby was still arranging the chairs in a shop class arrangement. And then Jeff hot-shotted Darby onto the stairs and then set the stairs in place, and they did spots off the stairs. And they're all on the floor. Nobody's in the ring. Nobody's getting counted out. It's gone to hell in the first 2 minutes. They almost got into the ring, and then Jeff pulled out a ladder and tossed it in the ring for him to go to the break. And I'm like, can this please be over soon? And Darby can still move because he's young. Jeff looks like he hurts to breathe, and we've already gone over this. It's embarrassing. And why are they putting him in this position? And I wrote down, can this be over soon? As soon as they came back from the break, they were climbing the ladder. That's got to be a 15-foot ladder in the fucking ring. And then Jeff somehow winds up on the floor, and Darby Allen climbs to the top of this 15-foot ladder that's set in the ring and gets up on the top of it and jumps off in a forward flip. It's like he's taking a big backdrop off the top of the ladder. And Jeff is down there. Jeff's 200 pounds max, and this fucking moron is flying at him from 20 feet in the air. And Jeff kind of reaches up, but Darby Allen just goes past Jeff Hardy and takes a flat backdrop bump onto the seats of the chairs that he has set up at the start of the match. How coincidental. Wouldn't you know who won the pony? Why would Jeff stand there? Why would Jeff Hardy? Because he's got no ability to say you're a fucking moron, even though he does have the veteranship and the experience and the tenure in wrestling to say, no, we're not going to do that. But he can't tell somebody that's stupid because he used to do stupid shit too, which is why he can hardly walk now and why they can't do their stupid shit anymore. But nobody else told Darby Allen, no, you're not going to do this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It doesn't belong in the match. By the way, this was not the finish. There was 5 minutes left in the show after that bump, and they both got back in the ring. I don't know what happened after that. I turned it off because I'd reached my limit. But that was not the finish. A 20-foot backdrop off the top of a ladder onto metal chairs on a concrete floor was not only not the finish, they are honoring Owen Hart by having a fucking guy choose to fall from a great height while doing something that he had no business doing. Owen didn't make that choice. He knew it was bullshit for him to be up there. I don't know what I would say to him if I ever met Darby Allen. I might cuss him. I might just laugh in his face and walk off, or I don't know if I would have the time, nor would he stay there long enough for me to tell him everything that's wrong with him. But that's a guy that I wanted to like. I've wanted to like since the start because we've said, he's obviously a complete idiot. He's an idiot in real life because he does all this shit for fun on purpose. He gets run over with cars and jumps off bridges and whatever the fuck. So, and he slept in his car before the first pay-per-view so he could remember what it was like when he had to sleep in his car because he didn't have any money. Pretend, you fucking moron. So I would never have anything in common with this fucking guy. We would never be able to speak on a personal basis. But with his wrestling, he made the dives look good. He had some intensity. He's got an underdog charisma and the weirdness to him. People like him. They want to cheer for him. So in a wrestling context, if he wasn't legitimately a moron and could control himself and was doing this as a work, I'd get into his wrestling. But because I know that he really legitimately just does this shit for kicks and doesn't care whether he gets hurt or not, and just makes the rest of the business look bad because here's this fucking cadaver-looking skinny motherfucker taking 20-foot backdrops and getting up from them. And the main event guys can't withstand half of that. It just makes the whole business look like shit. And it fosters the idea that other guys need to top this shit, so they're going to do something more dangerous. So I can't like his wrestling because I know that it's not a gimmick, that he really is a goofy fuck that jumps off shit for kicks and doesn't care whether he gets hurt, but he's going to hurt somebody else because he's going to land on him. And 150 pounds coming off the top of a 20-foot ladder, elbows and boot heels first, you could hurt somebody easily. I would not stand under this motherfucker, nor would I let anybody else if I was running the company, because I wouldn't be letting him jump off the fucking ladder. This guy has something, and people like him. And if he was working it and in control of it and knew what he had and what he was doing, he'd be able to capitalize on it. But he's just one of these goddamn jackass ridiculousness motherfuckers that is not in control of this, and it's not a work with him. So I have actually more disdain for him than for the other dipshits that don't have any talent, because he's got talent and he's just too stupid to use it right. So who won this match, and what caliber was the gun they used?
You know what? I don't even remember what the finish was.
Well, there you go.
I got to go back and check who won. Darby did a great dive to start it. His dives look great. Yeah. I asked a wrestler what those feel like, and they said, they're pretty light, actually, because he weighs nothing. But there was a lot of negative feedback you saw from AEW fans about this match. This show, the last several shows, this doesn't make anyone comfortable. Darby Allen doing this stuff, Jeff Hardy barely able to work. I don't know why they did this for the Owen Hart Cup. I don't know why they did this in front of Martha Hart. Why would you do this? Bad match, unnecessary. For the same reason that Jim Ross, of all people, exposed the business in the manner in which we talked about earlier in the program, because they all associate with each other and they don't take a step back and remember what wrestling was and is supposed to be and how people are supposed to conduct it and or talk about it. And they've lost themselves in this little bizarro world they live in where everybody's smart, and the whole idea is to make people as smart as possible, and that'll make them watch the show more. Because that's what they think, apparently, but they're fucking nuts. They're crazy as a rainbow trout in a car wash. I wonder what Martha did think about that, come to think of it. Yeah. What did she think about the whole show? She was there the whole night. At some point she had to think Owen would be he would either be upset or he would be laughing his ass off, because Owen did like to have fun, and he would have been able to take the piss out of a lot of these guys, and they would have never even seen it coming. With that straight face and that monotone delivery he could give when he was winding you up, and it would just be so nonchalant. You'd think, he really meant that. Maybe he could have sold him some pizzas over the phone. Anyway, your closing thoughts on this program. I have been really uninspired by AEW the last several weeks. I was Going through a period where I was really hot on it. There was a lot of things on the show, from FTR getting featured and getting over to MJF to Punk. And now, other than the MJF Wardlow thing and some of the Punk stuff, and FTR hasn't been used as a tag team since, the shows have really not been good. The booking's not good. The show-wide booking right now is not good. The Malachi Black angle last week was a disaster. The Jericho stuff is really lame. They've ruined Danielson. I shouldn't say ruined. They've watered down Danielson when you shouldn't. The TNT title has never meant less.
If we want to watch Jay Lethal, we got to watch Satnam Singh.
The booking has been really, really bad, and the sad thing is it doesn't affect anything. The brand of AEW and a big main event is enough to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a big card out in front of people. What's the card for the pay-per-view? The pay-per-view's in like 2 weeks. MJF Wardlow, Punk versus Page. What's the rest of the show?
I don't know. But it does, it's the AEW fan base is going to make sure, at least for the foreseeable future, that every big show performs like it's been, because they're crowdfunding this thing. It means more to them than Aunt Fanny getting a fucking heart transplant or a new pacemaker. They're going to crowdfund this thing and will it to happen on the big shows or whatever. But sooner or later, is there going to be a recession in this country? Money gets short, or the bloom comes completely off the rose or whatever. And they're going to actually, in AEW, start having to do it the old-fashioned way and give people something that they'd actually want to specifically see in order to purchase the ticket or buy the pay-per-view or whatever, rather than just, oh my God, it's AEW and it's a show. We must partake. Because that's only going to last so long. And everybody every name they sign, every new talent they bring in, there's more talk about them, anticipation and buzz around them and excitement for them on their debut than there ever is again, because people are going by their reputation before they got there. And then they debut, oh, he's here. And then they see him 3 or 4 weeks and they go, oh, yeah. So we'll see.